Welcome to Film 5D, the show about everything film and video and the A7S II. I'm your host, Aaron Hammock, and this week I give you guys my review on the Mevo camera from Livestream. So this camera, the Mevo, came out about 2 months ago now, and honestly, I got it for work the day it was available in August for doing Facebook live streams. So I probably used it about a dozen times since then, and I have a pretty good grasp of the capabilities. Therefore, I'm going to give you my 5 things I like most about this camera, as well as the 5 things I think could be improved in a future firmware update or hardware updates for version 2. I'll go through these as quick as possible since there's a lot to cover. And in traditional Film in 5D fashion, I'm just going to give you just kind of a quick overview of the things that I like most and the things that I think could be improved, like I just said before, just because there's a lot of reviews of this out here if you want to know the specifics about kind of the specs and all the different details about this camera. But let's start with a positive. Number 1, the Mevo camera from Livestream is essentially 3 or more cameras in one, depending on your setup. You see, the Mevo records at 4K, but then exports or outputs at 720, which is more than 8 times smaller than native 4K resolution. But on a realistic shoot, you can get away from anywhere from 3 to 6 shots, which is fantastic for a small setup. Though my first negative for this camera is that the lens is just too wide in my opinion. On paper, the Mevo has a FOV or field of view of 150 degrees, and honestly, I don't know the specs for the GoPro cameras off the top of my head, but the Mevo definitely feels more distorted and more fisheye than the GoPro. In fact, every time I've used this camera, I wound up just zooming in slightly as my base wide shot or 2 shot, and my subjects had to sit extra close together and really close to the camera just to keep the shot from being distorted. And then you get this awkward situation where your subjects are looking at the camera at a harsh angle, and that can definitely come off as awkward. Not entirely sure why they made the lens on this camera so wide, probably for reasons like low light performance or something like that. But in my opinion, I'd like to see a slightly less wide lens for the Mevo 2 in the future. But let's get back to the positives. My number 2 is the ability to control the Mevo with an iPhone. And man, does this app have everything you need when it comes to basically being able to use your phone to switch between camera angles you selected and push your video to apps like Facebook for live streaming. However, and this is my second negative feature of the Mevo, is the lack of audio options. Now, it does come with this onboard stereo microphone that you can see right here, which is fine in most situations, especially when you compare it to something like a GoPro or even an iPhone, something else that you might use to record a Facebook live video with. But the problem with the Mevo here is that you can't connect an external microphone to the Mevo as there are no ports to do so, which if you're using a teleprompter is pretty necessary because your onboard Mevo microphone is going to be blocked by the teleprompter, which has been an issue for me in the past. Now, one workaround is to connect certain lav microphones like the ones with the 3 rings on the 3.5mm jacks to an iPhone like this that you're using to broadcast. The only problem with doing this is that unless you're running an extra long cable to your talent, you won't be able to run audio and control the camera at the same time, which may or may not be an issue for you. Not to mention that as far as I know, that only allows you to connect a 1 lav mic. So if you're doing a Facebook Live or live stream with an additional person with two or more subjects, that's simply just not going to be an option for you. But moving on to number 3, the software on this thing is just amazing. I mean, honestly, the ability to switch angles on the fly and even have it track subjects or switch between 2 or more people as they converse, all through a single camera, is arguably the best reason to get this camera for live streams. Though, on the other hand, the app can be a bit laggy, and more importantly, the connection between the Mevo and your iPhone to the internet can be shaky at times, and I've been in situations where the internet just wasn't ideal enough to shoot off the Mevo, so we had to record straight off of the iPhone, forgoing the Mevo altogether. And this leads me to number 4, the accessories. The optional $250 Mevo Boost adds about 10 hours of battery life, an Ethernet port, and a USB port that can be used for 4G wireless modems for when Wi-Fi isn't available. And honestly, that USB port can't really be used for anything else, so that's kind of a negative. Now, I'm glad that they've at least included this as an option, albeit an expensive, awkwardly shaped one. For some people, the reliability of the Ethernet connection might be just a necessity rather than just an option, so that's something to consider. The Mevo Boost also helps with battery life, which is actually my negative for number 4, which is just the 1 hour battery life on the Mevo without the boost, which in the world of live streaming and webcasts, etc., just isn't going to cut it. I mean, basically, you have to have this thing plugged in or use an external battery or the Mevo Boost to be able to reliably use the Mevo for live streams, in my opinion. But unless you absolutely need an Ethernet port for the Mevo Boost, I'd recommend using something like this external battery I have here. This is just a much cheaper option. It can give you as much battery life or even more than the Mevo Boost, because the Mevo Boost is actually only around 12K milliamp hours, and you can get these ranging anywhere from 10 to 20K. And finally, my fifth feature is the ability to record to the included micro SD card like this one here to be saved and used at a later date. Now, if you're just recording to the card and not actually streaming simultaneously, which is possible by the way, you can record up to 20 megabytes per second, which is just drastically improves the quality of the Mevo's output. So this means you can export the video and upload it via a tool like OBS, for example, and then stream it live at a later date, which is a pretty great feature considering that it will already be cut up and all the cut-ins will be done, which is nice. However, this leads me into a feature lacking in my opinion. This camera only outputs at 720p, and I was shocked when I found this out, to be honest. I mean, it kind of makes sense considering that you can only live stream to Facebook at a quality of 720p anyway, but still, I wish you could at least have the option of doing 1080 if you were just recording to the SD card. But that's it for my 5 best and worst features. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Would you consider buying this for 400 bucks? Or since the GoPro is the same price, would you buy that instead? Let me know what you think. And that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by liking this video. And if you have any questions for me, send them via @mentions on Twitter @filmin5d. I'll see you next week with what features I'd like to see in the rumored Sony A9. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button on screen for weekly content on all things film and video. If you'd like to learn more about the Mevo camera for streaming, check out my blog on my website at filmin5d.com. Also, check out my video on my top 5 features of the new Sony RX100 Mark V. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.